Alright, so this flipped lesson is going to be on student learning outcomes. This is going to be just kind of a brief overview of what they are and kind of the roles as well as the dates that people will play in the days that we will have things due so that we can have everything done by the due date. So the first slide here just kind of goes over what student learning outcomes are, and kind of a very brief thing is they're just trying to measure students' ability and teachers' ability based on student achievement. So as a teacher, you're going to set a goal for all of your students or a subgroup of your students, and then you're going to be assessed based on your kids reaching goals that you set for them. All right. So as you can see here, this is the Baltimore County Public Schools teacher evaluation model. The left-hand side over here is based on your qualitative piece. So this is your evaluations. This is domains 1 through 4. So they call it the qualitative piece. The other 50% of your evaluation will be based on quantitative measures. For most teachers in our building, it will be on the non-tested subjects, so down here on the right, where 50% of your evaluation will be based on your 2 SLOs. I'll get into more detail about what those are. As of right now, for teachers who are either math, science, or 8th grade science, or reading / language arts, you will be assessed based on 20% MSA, 30% student learning outcomes. State of Maryland has applied to the federal government for a waiver for that, to where everyone would fall under the non-tested subjects. So that's kind of pending still. So who writes SLOs? All teachers of record have to write SLOs. So if you give a student a grade in stars, you are the teacher of record. If you're a co-teacher, so example of Mr. Thompson going in and teaching with Miss Barrera, Mr. Thompson would still write SLOs, but it'll be SLOs targeted at his students that he's working with in that class. So his will be much more specific than what Miss Barrera's would be. How many SLOs do you need to write? Each teacher in the middle school will write 2. There was some confusion about HSA teachers. High school HSA teachers have to write 3. As of right now, middle school teachers only have to write 2. So one of your SLOs will be based on an instructional goal, based on a long interval, sometimes unit, some of them will be based on years. You can determine that with your department chair. And then your other SLO will be aligned with the principal's student learning outcomes for the entire school. You will learn more about those on October 28th. So here's kind of a timeline of what's going on at Southwest Academy in terms of student learning outcomes. Today you're getting the flipped lesson on SLOs. Your completion date for this is October 31st. That is that half day at the end of the quarter. That is really important that you have it done by that day, because when you come in on November 1st, you are going to, down here, you're going to have a professional development provided by Baltimore County Public Schools on what student learning outcomes are, how they are, and how to develop them. The 21st, you received SWA University training. On October 25th, so this Friday, I am going to be in the faculty room, the faculty workroom, during third period, so during all 3 lunch shifts. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about Southwest Academy University, I'll be in there. I'll be available to answer questions for you, those kinds of things, either as a group or as individuals. It's kind of up to you, but I'll be in there waiting for you. On October 28th, we are going to work on our teacher self-assessments, and we're also going to work on the teacher professional development plan. And you will do that based on the faculty meeting, which you will be divided into 3 separate groups. More to come on that on Monday. I already told you about November 1st in the morning. In the afternoon, you are going to go work in content areas, and in your content areas, you are going to work on the self-assessment and the teacher personal development plans. On November 4th, in your content groups, you're going to work on / developing and reviewing your SLOs. November 11th and 18th, you are going to continue to work on SLOs. You're also going to get more understanding of the teacher framework for Baltimore County. And then November 25th will be a grade level meeting. This is really important. The finalized, edited, and approved SLOs are due December 1st. So every teacher in the building has to be completely done with their SLOs in terms of writing them by December 1st. More on the November 1st professional development date. So we are getting something from Baltimore County in terms of how to write them. They're going to give you much more information on that on November 1st in the morning. Content teams will continue to work on SLOs on the 4th. And then also I am available to help you with your SLOs. You just have to email me, fill out the staff development teacher request form. Are there example SLOs or a bank of SLOs? Today, actually, October 23rd, Baltimore County released the majority of the example SLOs. They're on the Office of Staff Relations intranet site. If you click this link right here in the presentation, it'll also take you to a series where I collected just the middle school ones. Those banks can be used, but they have to be adapted in order to fit individual teacher data. You may choose to work on a small group of students instead of all 150 some odd of your students. So just remember that those banks are there for you to use, but you do have to adapt the goals and stuff to fit your students. All right, so what is the process by which teachers will develop their SLOs? Departments and teams will work together to determine the targets, evidence, student group, and intervals of instruction. For example, if it was a 6th grade world cultures class and you're working on how the physical environment influences cultures and how cultures influence the physical environment, that's a running theme throughout the course of the year. So you could start with Latin America, do a pre-assessment. Mid-assessment would be South Asia, and then your final assessment would be in East Asia, just as one example of that. And you could choose to work with only students who scored very poorly, or you could work with students who scored very highly, and you can also disaggregate where you're working with both of those groups, but they have different targets. So your department chairs or me, the SDT, will approve the targets, evidence, student group, and intervals of instruction, confirming that the SLO is aligned to the curriculum and represents a rigorous target. And you can see right here, if you click on this link, it'll take you to the target calculator. Basically what that says is if you set the goal of 100%, what is acceptable and what's considered to be achieving your SLO data. Step 3, teachers create SLOs using the Student Learning Outcomes template. Again, you can click the link and it'll take you to that. And you can use the teacher guidance forms the Baltimore County has provided. You can also click there and it'll take you to that link. And then for step 4, teachers self-assess their SLOs using the Student Learning Outcome Approval rubric. Again, you can click here and it'll take you there. That is the process also that the SDTs and the AP teams will use when they look at them and they give them back to you for revisions. And you can see that for step 5. What baseline information can you use to write your SLO? You can use school-wide data such as MSA data, MAP data, ReadyStep data if you're working with 8th graders. In-class assessments from prior years, so you know that your students have struggled with a particular skill in years past. You can set up a plan to where you know that's where those students were when they came in, or you know that's where you struggled. You set that target, you adjust the target, and you eventually get there. You can set pre-assessments. So again, like I said with the 6th grade world cultures example, if you're working on how physical world changes cultures and cultures change the physical world, you can look at that, pre-assess it in one unit, do a midterm in another unit, and then do your final assessment based in another unit. Skills inventory, math, it could even be into dance classes, those kinds of things, student work samples, student grades. No, this will get a lot easier next year because we'll have a better idea of how to do it. We'll also have better knowledge of baseline data based on what we do this year. So how will achievement of the SLO outcomes be monitored prior to final measurement? The teacher must identify the formative assessment. So it's our job as teachers to say, this is how I'm going to measure my students. It can be classwork, homework assignments. It can be exit tickets. So this is the monitoring piece. Quiz results, progress on projects, application of rubrics to drafts, application of rubrics to similar products. So if, for example, you're working on argumentative writing, you have the same rubric. You give them a pre-assessment, they're writing an argument, measure them based on that, and then you're trying to increase their data based on the same exact rubric. Is another way to measure it and keep tally of where they are, so that when you come to your mid evaluation, you have an idea. By when must it be finalized? So for teachers, everything needs to be finalized. Your SLO data needs to be finalized by the end of the year conference. So SLO targets can be changed, but they must have the approval of your department chair, SDT, or the AP team. And then we actually have to go to Ms. Barnes to make sure that that target and that shift to target is okay. So if you set a goal for your students to achieve a 5-point increase, you get halfway through and they've only achieved a 1-point increase, you can adjust down that goal so that you're more apt to make that goal. So this is the SLO outcomes measured. So this is straight from BCPS, so BCPS Student Learning Outcomes Rating. So if 85% of your students meet or exceed your target that you set for your students, you get a rating of a 4, and you can see how that trickles down from there. How will SLO performance affect teacher evaluation and appraisal? So like I said earlier on the second slide, 50% of a middle school teacher's evaluation is determined by the evaluator scoring of the SLO. This, of course, pending relaxation of the MSA scores as a quantitative measure of student growth for teachers who teach in tested areas. SLOs from both the formative years and the summative year are used to determine the teacher's evaluative rank at the end of the summative year. So all 3 years of SLO data goes into your summative year. This is an unofficial final evaluation rubric. So if for your quantitative piece you get a 4 and your qualitative piece you get a 4, then you will get a highly effective, just to kind of give you an idea. If you're a 3 and a 3, you get effective. If you're 3 and 4, then you get effective. You guys can read that. If you have any questions about this, feel free to come see me and I'll help you out with that. And again, this is an unofficial final evaluation score matrix. Next year, things will change a little bit differently. Instead of being due December 1st, SLOs will be due September 15th. This year's kind of that transition period. Next year, they expect us to have the experience to be able to write them by the 15th. The interval of instruction will be 1 school year, so now you can do on units. Next year, they will have to be based on the entire school year, or if you're in a semesterized course like health, it can be a semesterized goal. The bank should exist well in advance next year. They're asking schools that have exemplars to shoot those to each office, and Office of Staff Development or Organizational Development, so that they can put those on. And next year, professional development on SLOs will focus primarily on new teachers, but I will also give us some little reminders and that kind of stuff as well. Additional PT on tiered SLOs for other advanced applications. SLOs are a lot more complicated than what we're doing this year, and next year we'll focus on being able to incorporate more of our students into our SLOs. So here are 4 critical questions. What do students need to know and be able to do? So that's kind of one of your questions as you're getting ready to write your SLOs. How will we know if excuse me, how will we know if they know it and can do it? What do we do if we don't know it and can't do it? And what do we do if they already know it and can do it? So as you sit there and you look at your goals, when you do that pre-assessment, you may have to do some adjustments to your SLOs and to your goals as well. So understand that these things are living documents and that they can change over time. So basically now, hopefully you have a better idea of what SLOs are and how our timeline at Southwest Academy is going to go for student learning outcomes. If you have any questions, please see me, please email me, and fill out the SDT request form.